1045 South Dell Terrace is looking to do a garage addition. Paul, if you want to go to the aerial, please. And as you'll see, South Dell Terrace is an unimproved road. It is actually the source of two driveways that provide access to 1045 South Dell Terrace and the property to the east. This property owner would like to extend their garage out over, and the size of the garage would actually extend over their property line, their current property line, which is yellow. If the vacation is approved, South Dell Terrace will be divided in half. A portion down here will go to the HOA, abutting Reserve A. The eastern half will go to this property owner, and then a portion of the western half will go to this property owner here, effectively extending his property line, which is why he wants to vacate the building setback to create this area in the box as buildable area in order for the garage addition. This subdivision committee reviewed this in addition to other information provided at the hearing last week. The action of the subdivision committee was to grant to recommend approval of the vacations. The conditions were that this whole area here that was the street right of way be retained as a utility and access easement. There are a number of utilities within there. You can see the sewer line, there's Evergy lines, there's a gas line. And the reason it was also retained as an access easement is there's a dam back here with the retention pond in Reserve A that is actually part of a larger portion of the overall stormwater management system for the watershed in the area as water flows out of there into the creek down here. And the dam needs to have access in order to be maintained. In the past, there was information provided that when vehicles have come to provide maintenance to the dam, they used this area of right-of-way to get to that access point, because any access along this property or this property, you have a very wooded area. It's not really easily accessible from any other position than the right-of-way here. And so it was, the applicant was amenable to it, of retaining that. The question that arises, based on how far over his property line, the subdivision committee granted 4 feet of this area here to not be part of that easement, to allow it to be buildable area to accommodate the size of his garage. The new information you have today, and it's on your table in front of you. I know the site plan's a little small to read, but I'll explain what it's showing. After the meeting, the applicant went to the surveyor he's been working with, and in discussion with him, it came about that his garage is going to extend over that line at its furthest point, 5.5 feet and not 4 feet. That was not details to the applicant's memory to recall during the meeting. And so in order to ensure the request is granted without having to come back and go through this whole process again, we're able to talk about it today and possibly get an alternate recommendation from this board over the subdivision committee. So let's talk about the access easement. The subdivision committee effectively allowed a 56-foot access easement because 4 feet of it would not be allowed. It's a 60-foot right of way. 5.5 feet reduces that to 54.5 feet. So it really should have no change on the ability for vehicles to come down the easement in order to access the dam. And so we're bringing it before you as a request to grant the new information and actually retain the easement minus 5.5 feet on the west abutting the applicant's property. So I hope I've made that clear. There has been no public comment. Well, I would say the public comment we received was from a neighbor to the west, and his comments was what caused the subdivision committee to consider retaining the access easement over the majority of the right-of-way in order to access the dam. Other than that, he's not opposed to the vacation. He just wanted to make sure access was there. I spoke with him yesterday, and he's still okay with everything going forward. So we haven't had any opposition to this case. No unspoken opposition at subdivision committee. Again, we have the applicant here if you have any specific questions for him. Otherwise, I can stand for questions you have for me. Yes, sir.
Go ahead, Commissioner Johnson.
Does the access easement take you all the way to the dam?
What it does is it takes you down. It includes the bulb that was platted as a partial cul-de-sac. That's included in the access easement. And then that butts up against Reserve A that is owned by the HOA, which would allow for access to, because that's how they do it now. There's no access easement on the HOA property, but Reserve A is meant for utilities and the dam and maintenance purposes. So likely, and it's everything in the HOA, everything in Reserve A is to be maintained by the HOA. So they would allow for vehicles to drive across property to maintain the dam.
Commissioner Aldrich.
Instead of the 4 foot that the subdivision did, and you're saying 5.5 foot, would it hurt anything or cause any issues to grant 6 foot?
I don't think so. I think it'd be wise to grant a little shy space.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions for staff? Okay, we're smiling. This was a great example of the public comments helping lead us to a great solution. Commissioner Foster did a great job in coming up with a way to kind of split the difference, and we just weren't quite generous enough. So applicant or agent, would you like to speak on this matter in addition to what staff has reported?
He doesn't indicate he has anything to add.
All righty. Is there anyone in chambers who wanted to speak on this item in addition? Anyone participating virtually who would like to speak on this item? Hearing none, I'll bring it back to the commission. What's your pleasure?
Make a motion that we grant 6 foot.
Okay, Commissioner Aldrich has made a motion to grant the request for an additional 6 feet. And Commissioner Williams Bay seconding the motion. Any further discussion on this item? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 12-0. Thank you very much. The next item would be case 4.1, conditional use 2023-00031, and Mamita will be presenting for staff today.
Hello, everyone. This is Momita Kundu from Planning, and I would be presenting Con 2023-31. The applicant is requesting a conditional use to allow an accessory apartment on the property zoned rural residential. The 36.95 acres of site is located at 5847 North, 231st Street West. The property is currently developed with a single family dwelling. Can we move to the next aerial map? And it also has a detached shade. If you can move to the site plan. The applicant intends to construct an additional dwelling unit north of the existing dwelling unit and convert the existing dwelling unit into an accessory apartment. The on-site sewer is provided by a wastewater lagoon that is located southwest of the existing dwelling unit. Water is provided by a private well water source. The applicant has a new request, which is not included in the staff report. They are requesting to have a separate water well for the accessory apartment. The case was presented at the Citizen Advisory Board 3 on 24th of July, 2023, and has been approved with this new request. If you move to the zoning map. Thank you. The character of the area is rural and low density residential. The properties to the north, south, east, and west are all zoned rural residential. Properties north, east, and west of the subject site are in use as agricultural land or are developed with single family dwellings. Properties to the south is in use as agricultural land. The property is unplatted. Section 3 of the subdivision regulations state that any expansion of residential uses is exempt from the platting process. There are no zoning cases on the site. If you move to the urban growth area map, the request is in conformance with the community investment plan, which identifies the site as being in the rural growth area on the 2035 urban growth areas map. The staff is recommending approval with the conditions that accessory apartment shall remain accessory to and under the same ownership as the principal single-family residence, and the ownership shall not be divided or sold as a condominium. The exterior materials are to be complementary to the main structure. The sewer services shall be the same as the main structure and provided in compliance with the Sedgwick County Sanitation Code before a building permit will be issued. Water, electric, gas, telephone, and cable television utility services may be provided as separate utility services. The applicant shall obtain all applicable permits, including but not limited to building, health, and zoning. The development and maintenance of the site shall be in conformance with the approved site plan. And if the zoning administrator find that there is a violation of any of the conditions of the conditional use, the zoning administrator may, with the concurrence of the planning director, declare that the conditional use is null and void. The staff received no public comment on this case. And let's go through the site photos one by one. This is looking north towards the site. Next. Looking north towards the location of the principal structure that has been proposed to build. Next. Looking west towards the site. Next. Looking south towards the site. Next. Looking towards the accessory apartment from the west. So right now this is the main dwelling, but it would be converted to an accessory apartment once the other unit has been built. Next. Okay. Looking northwest towards the site. I think this is the last picture that we have. Next, is there any? Okay, yeah. Looking northeast from the site. And with that, I will stand for any questions.
Any questions for staff? Does the Commissioner Warren, go ahead.
The first condition says that the property would remain under the same ownership. If somebody wanted to divide this off into a separate deal later, could they do that by going through a planning process, or is this not something that can never be divided with what we're doing today?
They can do it through a platting process, and I will let Scott comment on that.
Yeah, that's correct. They can do that through the platting process. They can do lot split or platted as multiple properties. And in that case, then I would know in terms of the accessory use, then you would have two separate properties. And if they're the right size, then they could each have a dwelling unit on them.
Thank you.
Any other questions for staff at this time? Thank you, Mamita. Would the applicant or agent like to speak, please come to the podium and state your name and address and tell us about your project.
Hi, everyone. My name's Jake Martin. Our address is 5847 North 231st Street West, Andale 67001. My wife and I are here. Why are we here? We are here. This is our family's primary residence that you guys saw the pictures of here. As you look through some of the details, the original permit for the house was pulled in 1885. Obviously, it's extremely dated, but it is an old family house. There's some sentimental attachment there, right? And so our intention is to leave the house stand so we can construct a new home adjacent or on the same property. To do that, we'd like to tie into the existing septic system that is there now. The one change that we requested was to go ahead and put in a new water well to supply the new home. The only reason for that change is The house was built in 1885. Obviously, the well is not that old, but it is old. We kind of felt like dollars spent on trying to tie into that existing infrastructure may not be worthwhile. We wanted to be able to go ahead and put a new well attached to the new house. So that was all. Any questions for me?
Any questions? Okay, there being nothing that I see from the commission. Thank you.
Okay.
Stay close.
Thank you.
Is there anyone in chambers who would like to speak on this item? Anyone participating virtually who would like to speak on this item? I would then bring this back to the commission. Commissioner
Mr. Chairman,
Foster,
I move to approve
Well,
with the change.
question?
I have a question for County Public Works, perhaps. I don't know, the additional well for water, is that in any way an issue with the county?
That would actually be a question for MAPCD, and I do not see a representative from MAPCD here.
Director,
Yeah, if I
Waddle?
could. So planning staff, Omida met today with Kelly Dixon from MABCD to talk through this process. And so there is a process that they would have to go through in terms of getting a new well. It's the same process anyone has to go through out in the unincorporated county if they want to do a well. But it certainly seems feasible, and Kelly didn't seem to have any heartburn over the issue. So
Thank you.
Commissioner Nix, question?
I don't have a question, but I have a comment. I just think that being able to maintain and restore, maybe not restore is the right word, but an old house that has that kind of history is a great idea. The longer it can stand, the more I'm in favor of it.
And that was our intention as well.
Right, great. Any other comments or questions? Then I had a motion to
second his
approve from Commissioner Bill Johnson and a second from Commissioner Green.
Rick
Any-
Sponsel, Assistant County Counselor, just for clarification on the record, in terms of the WAR, the motion was to approve, but with the proposed changes in
Yes.
regards to the WAR, correct? So that would indicate both a partial waiver of the supplemental use regulation 3D6A4 in regards to the water service. And that would also mean a change to number 2 of the proposed conditions in regards to water services as well. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
That's what Commissioner Bill Johnson intended. And will be, are you amenable to those adjustments in your second, Commissioner Green?
Yeah, because that's what he meant.
Okay, very good. Any further discussion on this item? Thank you very much. I look forward to watching the activity in my neighborhood. All in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes 12-0. Thank you so much for your testimony. Brings us to item 4.3, zoning case 2023-00040, and Christina will present the staff comments.
Good afternoon, everyone. Christina Reith, Associate Planner with the Planning Department. This is case number zone 2023-00040. The applicant is requesting a zone change from SF5 single family residential to TF3 two-family residential. The property is 18.5 acres in size and is located at 5515 West MacArthur Road. The subject site is currently undeveloped. The applicant has indicated they're requesting the zone change for this duplex development. It is unknown how many duplexes will be developed on site. Should the zone change request be approved, there will be no change in setbacks, parking requirements, or maximum height. The only difference is that single family residence requires a 5,000 square foot minimum lot size, while TF3 two-family residential requires a 3,000 square foot minimum lot size per dwelling unit, or in this case, for duplex development, it would be 6,000 square feet. On May 11th, 2023, the subject site was annexed into the city of Wichita, and there are no zoning cases associated with this property. The requested zone change is in conformance with the community investments plan. When you take a look at the 2035 future growth concept map, It identifies a site as appropriate for residential and employment mixed uses. The plan defines residential and employment mix as areas of land that will be developed or redeveloped by 2035 with uses predominantly of a mixed nature. Due to the proximity of higher intensity businesses, residential housing types within this area will likely be higher density. Duplex development is thus an appropriate use of land for this area. Based upon the information available at the time that staff report was prepared, staff recommends that the zone change request be approved. The recommendation is based on the golden rules that we all follow, which are listed in your staff report. I will go and skip ahead to the last one, which is opposition or support of neighborhood residents. And at the time the staff report was prepared, staff received one comment in regards to the requested zone change, and that's attached in your staff report. Let's go to the site photos, please. This is looking east towards the site. Next slide, please. This is looking south towards the site. Next slide, please. This is looking north away from the site. Next slide, please. And this is looking west away from the site. And with that, I will stand for questions.
Questions for staff at this time? Seeing none, we'll ask the applicant or agent, please, to step forward and tell us about your project. We'll need your name and address, and you have 10 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Tim Chad. Address 2326 North Lakeway Circle in Wichita, Kansas, 67205. Along with myself and my brother, David, we're proposing to develop 18.49 acres in the MacArthur, east of MacArthur and Hoover Road for a multi-family community. It's really pretty simple. Our goal is just to provide quality, affordable housing for that area. We still think inventory is very low. Just want to build a very nice product and offer folks in that area either to purchase a duplex, lease a duplex, or purchase one side of a duplex. That's really what we want to accomplish.
Okay, any questions for the applicant? Commissioner Warren?
Yes, sir. Do you have any thoughts to the letter that we've got concerning traffic and?
You know, right there's 2 lanes in all directions. Obviously the infill, the way engineering is going, where it looks like 60 to 70 units, we're going to save that northwest corner for possible commercial down the road. I wish I could give you an answer that I knew what was going to happen with the roads, but I just don't have that information. It's not, I'm not pertinent to that information. I'm sure there's studies done by the city and the county on traffic, on what needs to be done as far as improvement on roads, widenings, but sir, I'm sorry. I don't know how to answer that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Stay tuned. You'll have a chance to come back. Now I'll call for any public comment on this item. If you want to make public comment, please proceed to the podium, give your name and address, and you have 3 minutes to speak. Hello.
So I'm Allison Seiler, and I'm at 3818 South Flora. So I'm right across the street, across MacArthur from where the twin homes will go, or the duplexes. So I'm nervous. I'm sorry, I'm nervous. What's a day at work for you? It's a bit emotional for my neighbors and I. So help just understand my nervousness. So just a quick timeline. I thought we had 10 minutes, not 3. So I'm gonna condense. But 15 years ago, we moved in. We found out, behind our home, the county owns a place where you guys dump rocks and stuff. It's dusty and it's loud, but we didn't complain because that's on us. We didn't research it before we moved in, right? So live with what you didn't research. And then 8 to 10 years ago, we paved our road. It was a vote of our neighborhood and we voted against it because we didn't have the money at the time and didn't want to pay for it. But our neighbors voted for it, a little bit of a questionable vote, but it got passed. So that's okay. We have to pay it. We're still paying on that road and it went through legally. We're good with that. It upsets me a little bit because we see all kinds of roads being paved now that the city or the county are paying for. While I'm still 10 years later paying for my road. So, but again, that's just another time, dealing with the city or the county. Then 4 to 5 years ago, we had twin homes put in across the street from where they are proposing to develop. And we were okay with that, right? Because you do need affordable housing for places. So we understood that. Did it help the value of our home? Probably not, but we were okay with that. Then about 1 to 2 years ago, they put in a Dollar General and we fought that. We don't want a Dollar General. We've got the twin homes. We don't want a Dollar General. We were overruled. We weren't heard. And the Dollar General went in regardless. And I believe that was through the city, but it was another time we got to talk to government and didn't get listened to. So now we're talking about adding more twin homes. So understand from my point of view, I'm good with the first set of twin homes we had. I'm good sharing the community, it's okay, but enough is enough. I mean, you can do a simple Google research and see that rental homes lower your value almost 14%. You can go to realtor.com and find that out. So we've already had one division of twin homes put in. Let's build the twin home somewhere else. We've had ours added. And I would just say that as I've spoken to all of my neighbors about this, and I've spoken to a lot of neighbors, and I've said, what do you think about these twin homes? And nobody wants them. I mean, I see the room isn't very full here today, but nobody wants them. And I was like, well, why don't you come to the meeting and let's just share that we don't want another set of twin homes. We're happy with what we got. We're happy to share our neighborhood with the new people, but we don't want any more. We want single family residential. That's what we're looking for. And
your time is up. Is there one more, any other concept that you could quickly?
Yeah, I just want to say that their response was, well, it won't matter if you go anyway. And if that doesn't at least worry you guys a little bit, it should make you a little sad. The constituents feel that way. And I would ask that you listen to what we're saying, and instead of ruling us, why don't you represent us? We don't want another twin home division. So we're asking you to please represent us in this. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Can you use the mouse to show us where your home is relative to this? You said on the other side of MacArthur.
I'm down here.
Okay, so it's kind of north of Dollar General, but on the north side.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
Commissioner Johnson?
Could you show us with the cursor where the other twin home development
Right over
is?
here. These are all twin home. I think it goes clear down to over here.
And what's across the street? Just single family?
Yeah, all of this is single family.
I mean, to them.
Oh, here?
To the
Yeah,
east.
everything is single family except right through here. Yeah, in the red is twin homes. This will be twin homes. Everything else is single residential, single family residential.
The developer indicated that they will be looking to sell as well as rent. And as price points of homes have gone up, duplex is more of the entry point. The fact that they will look for owner occupants as well as renters, does that have any impact on your views?
It doesn't. You know that some of them are going to be bought for renters. Can I ask him a question, or are you going to own these, or are you selling to
You
somebody
can't
else?
ask him a question directly, but you can.
Oh, I'm sorry.
He can respond to your
Right.
concern in a rebuttal.
Right. So the question is, are they the single owners at this time, or are there investors?
Okay. Any other questions for the speaker? Thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on this item? Anybody else who wants to speak on this item to the group? Okay, is there anyone participating virtually who would like to speak on this item? Hearing none, applicant or agent, if you'd return, you have 2 minutes to respond to what you've heard.
The response to the question is my brother and myself we'll develop and build these out. And real simple, with interest rates on the rise, entry-level folks that need to want to purchase a home, it's much easier for them to get into one side, 1,200 square feet, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car garage. We're going to look at all avenues, but our goal is to keep these properties or sell them. There's no other investors. It's myself and my brother.
Commissioner Aldrich?
Yes, sir. I'm just curious on the northeast part of the property, there's like a wedge sliver. What is that? Is that access to the big ditch?
That is the big ditch, the Valley Center floodway on the east side of the property. There is no access from this said property that we're developing to the big ditch. Is that what, did that answer your question?
Well, no, right there on the northeast corner of the blue.
The triangle.
There's like a little wedge right there. I'm just curious what that is.
Commissioner or Director Wadle, you have a comment?
Sure. It appears from the map that that's actually right of way, or at least not private property, because private property is outlined in yellow on there. And you can see where that wedge kind of drives kind of south and east along the property, that there doesn't appear to be a yellow line to the north.
I thought he stated he was gonna retain something for commercial.
I'll let him address that if you'd like.
Well, Christine, the proposed is in the blue, correct? And the northwest corner is, yeah. So
you own the northwest corner that's not in blue? And
yes,
that you're retaining for potential future commercial?
correct.
Okay, and that's what it's already zoned, I believe.
And I believe you're right about that being easement or right away. And also one other note, I don't know if it's pertinent or not, but there's an AT&T vault on the northern part of that, and they have right away there, serve communication to Cessna or Textron.
Okay, Commissioner Foster has a question.
Is there enough link between the area you're planning to develop for duplexes outlined in blue and the right of way of MacArthur to allow for access onto MacArthur? It looks like a very narrow
The
wedge.
proposed engineering is access on MacArthur and on Hoover Road as well,
And
to access and entry and exit points.
all right, thank you.
Okay, any additional questions? And we called for virtual. Okay, thank you very much. That brings us back to the commission. You want to start with some discussion? Any thoughts, Commissioner Foster?
Simply, we do listen to the public when they come to these meetings, but understand we have heard the same argument many, many times before. And we also, while we try to represent members of the public who come here, we also represent or are supposed to represent the public in general, including people who want entry-level housing in this community and can't afford it at the moment. So we have reasons for wanting to approve development of duplexes. Also, just for my personal perspective, I live in a neighborhood with single-family homes and apartments and duplexes and commercial all on the same block. And it's not as awful as people seem to think it is. I think some of your fears may be unfounded.
Any other comments or questions?
Madam
Discussion?
Chair, I move that we approve this case as presented.
Second.
Motion from Commissioner Green, a second from Commissioner McKay. Any further discussion? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Motion passes 12-0, and thank you for your testimony. That brings us to item 4.4, and Director Wadle will present this case for us today.
All right, we're going to give folks a chance to get the PowerPoint loaded on this one, so might take just a little bit. but I can do the introduction again. Scott Wadle from the Planning Department. The item before you is consideration of an amendment to the Unified Zoning Code. This amendment would specifically make changes to the Old Town Overlay District. And here's the PowerPoint, so I'll take you through using this. All right, next slide. There we go. So the recommendation is that you initiate an amendment to the Unified Zoning Code, and second part of that is that you approve the proposed changes or updates to the code. Next slide, please. So in terms of existing conditions, so there is an overlay district. As you know, there's zoning that we've talked about in cases before this. In this instance, there is an overlay layer of zoning in addition to the typical zoning that you see for properties. And this is not for Delano, but this is for Old Town. And so this is in Old Town. It specifically prohibits tattooing and body piercing as a land use in underneath that overlay district. Well, there is a tattoo business that opened. If you're familiar with the former First Gear location in Old Town, that's where that store, that business opened. We received a complaint about it. We went out and evaluated it, confirmed that it was a violation of the zoning code, and provided notice to them. As part of this process, a community dialogue started up about whether or not the business should be allowed to remain. We received feedback from the Old Town Association that their preference was to allow that business to remain and to look at options for how that could be done. We have been in dialogue for quite a while about what the preferred option is. And after some conversation also with MAPC Advanced Plans and then back to the Old Town Association, the preferred option now is to update the overlay district for Old Town in order to allow tattooing and body piercing as a land use there. So this slide shows you the map of the Old Town Overlay District. You can see that it is one large area, but then also there's a number of areas that have been included in it, including one of them being the anchor, as well as a business further south of Douglas. Next slide, please. So in the zoning code, I know you can't read this, but what I've highlighted is that the specific text from the Old Town Overlay District that does not allow for tattooing and body piercing. Next slide, please. So in terms of events, I've explained kind of where we've been so far. This is just a slide to show you kind of the sequence of events about how we got here. Next slide. So as part of that dialogue with the Old Town Association, they also commented that they were fine with having tattooing and body piercing, but there were some conditions that they would like to see attached to that, so that any of those operations operating in Old Town would have to comply with. And they are these two. Number one, that they would be operated by appointment only. And number two, that they would operate between the hours of 10 a.m. and 10 p.m. So they could not open earlier, could not be open later than that. So that has been included in the recommendation to you. Next slide. In terms of process, the public notice did go out, so it was distributed to every property within the Old Town Overlay District, as well as properties within 1,000 feet. So the notification area is quite large for this case. We are holding the MAPC public hearing today. If you vote to approve it, then it will go forward to the City Council and then later to the County Commission, because again, it's a joint zoning code, so it would go to both. Next slide, please. So again, the recommendation is that you initiate the amendment, and number two is that you approve the proposed zoning code changes. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Commissioner Johnson.
Scott, under what approval process is it there right now?
It is, the tattoo business is currently in violation of the zoning code. We have suspended the enforcement actions as we are looking at a solution to get them into compliance. And this is the preferred solution at this time.
Well, but did they get a building permit?
No, sir, the building was already there. My understanding is that they have simply leased the space.
Thank you, Commissioner Nix. You had a question?
So if I decide to get a tattoo, Scott, probably not gonna have, but if I decide to do it and I go up and knock on the door, turn me away and tell me to call, make it for an appointment, is that what it is?
In a manner of speaking, yes. So they would have to operate by appointment only. Yes.
Commissioner Warren.
Scott, when this was presented, the advanced plans, there was a theory behind that appointment. Do you want to elaborate on that? Speak to it.
If you'd like, sir, and then I can follow up.
It'll take two places of business, sometimes have lines that becomes a place to lower. And so if they were doing it by appointment, or lowering around the business. So that was the concern the other businesses had. And that's why if it was on an appointment basis, it would make that or reduce it.
If you have lines, probably somebody's gonna open up next door.
If they
I
have to
used
go
to work
by,
in the restaurant business anyway.
but if you do it by an appointment basis, they're not gonna hang around the outside waiting to go in. They'll go in with their appointment.
Commissioner,
I just don't see how you're gonna enforce it, but just me.
Commissioner Foster, you had a question?
Well, partly on that issue, what's to stop people from saying, well, I want an appointment for 2 minutes from now? I understand now what the logic is behind it, but I think it maybe needs to be a little more specific. Appointments made at least a day ahead or something like that. And also mentioned, is there some sort of a limit on the number of tattoo parlors that might be ensconced in Old Town at some point?
Sure.
Can there be?
With both addressing both of those questions or statements. So in terms of the second one, would there be a limit? In fact, there would not be. So there's no distance separation. There's no cap on the number of tattoo or body piercing businesses that can be in operation if this change is approved. The first one, in terms of setting up the appointments, yes. And as Commissioner Warren has indicated, I think the concern or the statement that kind of came forward was preventing folks from being outside in line for a tattoo and then having the bar activity and it being later in the night and then disturbances or something perhaps occurring. Now, could a business, as you indicated, operate by saying, hey, Mr. Nix, Commissioner Nix has knocked on the door, he wants a tattoo. Well, we can fit you in 5 minutes. Why don't you wait in our lobby? Would that constitute an appointment? I believe that it would, but yeah.
We have a Commissioner Bill Johnson has a question.
I think the other thing that's good about that is it is down an area where people are drinking. They might get brave and want a tattoo or be put up to it because of a group they're with or whatever. If they make an appointment, they might sober up by the time they get an appointment. And they may not want one.
Commissioner Aldrich.
How long has this business been in operation?
I'm going to look to JR to help me out with this one, but I believe that we received the complaint in late 2022. Is that correct, JR?
I'm thinking September, but I wouldn't stake my life on it. Late summer, early fall, I would say.
Okay, so they've been operating almost a year and they're not in compliance. And now all of a sudden they're going to get rewarded and be allowed to do their business.
Well, I guess to that comment, I would just add that it has taken a number of months to determine what the options are in order to address what we've received as the conversation about allowing them to remain. There's a number of different options to accomplish that, and then to arrive at this being the preferred one.
They should have been shut down until everything else got straightened away. I mean, they're operating, they're not in compliance. They were allowed to operate, and now you're in a situation where, you're going to make a change to the regulations just so they can operate their business that they shouldn't have been doing in the first place.
Commissioner Foster.
I'm old and my attitudes toward tattoos are different from what they are now. But I think that's part of the issue here is that tattoo parlors are zoned the way they are often zoned because the assumption was that it would be a bunch of undesirables and drunken sailors going to get tattoos. Well, if you've gone through any, college campus lately or a restaurant that's got young servers, it's everybody these days. And I personally don't want people sticking needles in my skin that way, but a lot of people apparently do. So I think the fact that we're updating zoning regulations to reflect the reality of how people feel about tattoo and piercing now is appropriate. We ought to be updating it and recognizing our new reality. I would like there to be some sort of distance limit to make sure that we don't end up with a tattoo parlor row in Old Town. And the appointment issue still bothers me. I can see them making appointments through some phone app where you have the 50 people in a row waiting outside in line, all straight out of the bars, making appointments at 10-minute intervals. I think that needs to be more specific before I would be happy for voting for approval for this.
I have Commissioner Green with a question.
Yeah, I know that Mr. Johnson asked a question about permitting and all of this. Isn't there some kind of a licensing procedure that is involved with tattoo parlors? And at that time, is that when it was determined that this was not in an area that it could be, or licensing has nothing to do with getting a permit to open up a business? Or
Well, you've asked a number of questions there.
yeah, I
Commissioner
know.
Green.
I'm trying to get around to, it's obviously is a licensed business, or it is not a licensed business. And did the zoning piece of that determine whether it was a licensed business for tattooing or not?
I'll attempt to address those as I think I understand them. The city does not license them. I believe the state regulates tattoo parlors, tattoo shops, tattoo businesses. As for how it came to our attention, it was not through a local licensing, it was through a complaint. That's how it came to our attention. That's how we knew.
And I have this vague recollection that the business had been advised when they signed the lease that it was okay to have a tattoo parlor there. So part of it was for information, or is that irrelevant at this time?
In discussions from our perspective, in discussions and communications with the business, after providing them notice and saying, hey, you are operating in violation, they had indicated that they were unaware.
Okay. Commissioner Aldrich.
Yeah, my comment earlier had nothing to do whether I approve or disapprove tattoos. That's up to the individual choice. And if they want to mark themselves up or put a bunch of holes in themselves, they can do that. They have that freedom to do that. My concern was any business that's operating out of compliance, whether it's any business as far as that goes. And then if they get caught where they're not supposed to be operating, and all of a sudden you start changing, the rules around where, hey, it's okay, to not abide by our ordinances or our statutes or the zoning codes. We'll just fix the zoning codes to allow you to continue doing what you're doing. That's what bothers me a little bit about it. I can care less whether somebody wants to get tattoos or not.
Commissioner Bill Johnson.
Scott, remind me how many years ago it's been. A lot of this property was industrial zoning, and it was down zoned because of Delano.
I can't speak to the whole history of it, but in a quick review of the files, it appears that the overlay district largely came into place as it is today, somewhere around the early 90s. So it appears 91, 92, somewhere in that time frame.
So prior to that, there were a lot of industrial buildings. And
it is my understanding that there was, warehousing and industrial activities that were taking place prior to that.
Secondly, I can remember I can't tell you when, but when we first heard about licensing or doing whatever with tattoo parlors, it wasn't against it, wasn't for it, didn't make no difference because they're the same way. I'm not gonna get poked with a needle unless I have to. But I'll be truthfully, when we went through that whole ordeal over tattoo parlors and piercing, I didn't think they would survive. So that shows you what I know.
All right, Mr. Cox, you had a comment that you wanted, okay, all righty. We do, I believe, have some, Commissioner Warren?
I just want to add to the discussion that I think one of the main factors here is listening to the businesses that are around it that are affected by it. If the Old Town Association said, hey, this is bad for us, and it was a business that was in it illegally, I would say, let's shut it down. But the fact that their neighbors do not see this as a detriment to it says that this is something we should be open to.
I just want to speak up again on the appointments. I don't think there's any way for us to really monitor whether or not people are making appointments. And even if they are, that's not going to ensure that there's not people lined up outside, because they can schedule appointments for every 15 minutes and it takes them an hour to do a tattoo on somebody or a piercing. And so, you know, it's kind of like going to get your hair cut. When you maybe schedule an appointment and you check in, but you're still standing around waiting for the next haircut in front of you to be done. So I just don't think there's any way that we can control any of that, or that's gonna assure that nobody's gonna be standing outside waiting to get a tattoo.
Commissioner Foster and I, again, we have some people in public who'd like to testify. So I wonder if we might want to move to the public testimony and then continue our discussion based on what we hear. Persons in chambers who would like to speak on this item. Would anyone like to come forward?
Hi, Trish Heilman, 139 South Fountain. I'm concerned about the protective overlays that were put into place. And I want to sort of acknowledge and thank you for mentioning the questions of, but aren't we sort of letting people break the rules and then making it okay? And I think the neighborhood has said, hey, we're okay with this. And so I think getting to a solution is a great thing. However, I would love if there were some kind of teeth to breaking the rules, as somebody who wants neighborhoods and residents to have some ownership and accountability to what happens in their environment, where the person who made the lease with the tattoo parlor, they should have known that these overlays were in place and that they were giving a lease to a company that didn't have any right to be there. So along with maybe changing things so that the tattoo parlors are allowed, and maybe you guys are incorporating some things about so many within a zone or whatever. I don't know. That's not my business. That's a neighborhood business. But is there any kind of way that we can put into this that says if a building owner who should be subject to this overlay breaks the overlay, that there is some financial penalty? It doesn't have to be huge. We're not looking to put building owners under, but just something that says, know your property and do right by your neighbors per what their intentions were and are. So that's just my thoughts as a resident who really loves the ability of our city to do overlays so that residents get to have a say in what their environment is like.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for the speaker? Thank you. Next speaker, anyone in chambers who'd like to speak? Please proceed to the podium, your name and address, please, and you have 3 minutes.
Hi, I'm Deborah Frazier. I'm the president of the Old Town Association and from 121 North Mead in Old Town. The appointment part is intended to, provide an enforcement tool of some sort. There's something that can in the future be used by officials As president of the OTA, I plan to make the zoning overlay something that our businesses are aware of, because they are not. It is just, you wouldn't know, you would believe all of the structure, the parameters that are on those businesses, as far as what kind of sign they can have and how the lighting can be on the sign and the shape and we have so many rules in place. I think it is the association's responsibility at this point to make businesses aware. And I think that the delay on, that company doing business there, it's my understanding they haven't really been able to do much business. They couldn't advertise, they couldn't put signage. So they were, as I understand it, struggling. And I do believe that the delay in our getting to this point since last October, when the board originally said, had the vote to say it's okay with these parameters. That was back in October. And I don't think it's the business's fault that it took this long. And I think that they're doing what the city told them they could do. So I'm not saying, sorry, Scott, but any questions?
Okay, so I guess any questions for Deborah Frazier? I guess I would ask, so the businesses in the vicinity in general don't have opposition or have agreed that this would be a good solution to allow the tattoo parlor as a new element of the overlay. Is that accurate?
And it's been a conversation since last October. And so far there's been no opposition to it. As we understand it came to be because nightclubs thought Old Town would be a great place to go long ago. And when they stayed open really late, people did exactly as some suspected and went in groups intoxicated, and we get tattoos at 2 or 3 in the morning. Thus the parameters to close at 10 so that they wouldn't be coordinating hours with any nightclubs. And then the appointments again provide for controlling sort of crowd control and some teeth for enforcement of however people enforce things. It might be the association, I don't know, but it gives us something to look to.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Williams Bay?
Yes, how many other tattoo parlors are in the area?
I would venture to guess 3, but they are literally, they are on the outskirts.
Not in the Old Town overlay.
No, they are a stone's throw away.
Okay, any other questions for the speaker? Commissioner Foster? Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else in chambers who'd like to speak on this topic? Is there anyone participating virtually who would like to speak on this topic?
I would.
Okay, can you give us your name and
Yes.
address, please? And you have 3 minutes.
Yes. Okay. My name is Brooke Russell, and I am an owner of Pavement Properties in Old Town, as well as a co-owner of Public at the Brickyard in Old Town. And we are less than a block away from this tattoo parlor. We have struggled in Old Town over the last few years with vacancies, especially since COVID. This retail has really struggled in Old Town in general. And this specific shop is not just a tattoo parlor, as you probably know, but there's a sneaker store in the building, as well as a vape shop. So we are in support of the tattoo parlor. We've had customers come through the restaurant that are customers of the shop across the street. And the owners come into the restaurant and purchase food. And that's what we need in Old Town. We need people supporting local business. And that's what I'm seeing from them right now. I think Foster, I don't know if her name's Deborah Foster, but I think her point about tattoos is right on, that this is an archaic zoning issue. And I think that the culture has grown past it. And so I think from what I understand, there are no business owners in Old Town that are opposed to this tattoo shop or other tattoo shops. The reason why we talked, I'm also on the Old Town Association board, and the reason why we talked about these conditions was because we did want to like kind of curb the idea of late night tattoos in the district. And if there is a long line, we want to be able to report it. But other than that, we see no issue. And let me tell you, rent in Old Town is not cheap. So I don't foresee a big, I don't foresee a big rush of tattoo shops in Old Town. If people can afford the rent, then and the parking fees that we pay, then I guess they have a right to open a shop there. But a shop is better than a vacant building, which I have plenty of those around me too.
Thank you for your testimony. Is there any questions for the speaker? Are there any additional persons participating virtually who would like to speak on this item?
Yes, my name is Matt Lashley and my son Blake is one of the owners
Matt,
of the establishment.
Could you,
Yes,
could you give us your name, your full name and your address, please, for the record? That'll allow us to keep you hooked into this discussion as it goes forward as well.
yes, sorry. My name is Matt Lashley, Mattlashleey. My address is 511 Fawnwood Court, Wichita, Kansas, 67235.
Thank you. Now you can proceed.
Okay. Like I said, my name is Matt Lashley. My son Blake is one of the owners of the sneaker store in this area. The answer to the questions about the lines and everything, there's never a line out there because the way that Ty does tattoos, he averages about 3 tattoos a day. So there's not lines outside of people rushing to get in there. An average tattoo takes about 2 hours. So, there's not a rush of people just lollygagging outside and waiting around and causing problems. In fact, there hasn't been no calls out there, no concerns of any kind with law enforcement. The neighbors are always welcoming and come over there. But if you go in, you have to kind of understand what this is. It's a store that's opened all the time. The sneaker store is opened all the time. So the tattoo shop is just a little part inside of the sneaker store. And then to address one of the gentlemen that said that they were illegally operating, they were given permission to operate until the clarity of this. So once they found out and all that, the city gave them time and did not force it. So actually, they weren't in violation of anything because they were given time for this hearing right here, if that makes sense. So, that was my part of it.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for the speaker?
Yeah, I don't want to be argumentative. I think the question was when they first started operation, not when the city found out and gave them an extension. The city didn't proactively allow them to be in there initially.
Yes, that is correct.
Thank you.
And I will state one more thing, I'm sorry, but on the licensing that some gentleman addressed was they have been completely licensed through Topeka. They come down, they check out the area, they make sure that the entries and exits and all that. So they are actually technically licensed from Topeka legally to do this.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Williams Beta, do you have a question?
Yes, is there only one tattoo artist in the shop?
Yes, sir. There's only one.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for the speaker? Thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else participating virtually who would like to speak? Okay, let's bring it back to the table. Commissioner Foster.
I know I brought up a couple of the questions that have been under discussion. But I think we need to remember we're not the discussion is about this particular individual tattoo shop, but what we're talking about doing is amending an overlay district, so it will affect all future potential tattoo shops in Old Town. So I'm less interested in the specifics about this business and more interested about the general impact that this amendment would have on the future of Old Town. And having said that, I think I understand Commissioner Aldrich's point about not rewarding a business that's been in violation, but A, I'm not sure how you punish the landlord without punishing the business. B, I don't think it's our role to punish. And C, I'm pretty sure we can't retroactively go back and change the rules to punish someone for something that isn't in our venue anyway. So having said all that, I think the amendment as presented is worth implementing. If future problems to develop, we can amend the amendment, we can continue to make additional changes if necessary. I move that we approve this amendment as presented.
Second.
I have a motion from Commissioner Foster and a second from Commissioner Green. Any additional discussion on the item? Ready to call for a vote? I'm going to try to call for all in favor. Please indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Nay.
Aye.
Have one opposed. And Commissioner Nix has left the meeting, so that would be motion passing 10-1. Thank you. Commissioner, you're also
I want a question.
okay.
I don't want to vote for it. I don't want to vote against.
So you want to abstain from the vote?
Is that loud?
You can abstain.
I'll abstain.
Okay, so we have 9 in favor, 1 opposed, and 1 abstention. He might have gone to get a tattoo. In fact, I'm going to go check out the parlor to add to my collection personally, but
He was sitting here starting to tattoo himself.
yeah, I'm sure.
I'd like to make just all over with now. I think like Ms. Foster brought up about changing times with way we're doing things today. I happened to be around when we started doing the amendments in Old Town and the overlay and all that and everything else. And we've amended that so many times back and forth because of situations that's happened. And I would hate like fury to say you can only have so many in an area, because if you do that, what would that do to Old Town if it started running into the restaurant business and the alcohol business and the stuff? Because, when Old Town was started, we had to amend a whole lot of things. Parking regulations weren't, that's why they built the parking garages and stuff in there, because none of them conformed because of the past zoning of industrial where they didn't have to have all that stuff. So I think it's just one step forward.
Well, and I want to punish the people who take action, before we do anything because they're property owners and have a right to.
Maybe it's
But no,
time.
where's the enforcement happen? It's really in our code division, correct?
It is. And, in short, the process is that if we receive a complaint, we will go out and observe whether or not that's actually happening. If we verify that, then we provide notice to the property owner about the violation, and we give them typically 30 days, 15 days, okay, depending 15 to 30 days to resolve that situation and keep in dialogue with us. In this instance, as noted, during part of the situation with this is it's kind of complicated about we got input about allowing the business to operate and a desire for that, and looking at the variety of different options that were available with the zoning code. And I think that's reflected in the conversation that we had at advanced plans, not with this proposal, but with the prior proposal. So yeah, it's been quite a dialogue.
Well, maybe in today's culture, you might want to look at revising the unified zoning code.
Well, we are in many instances, correct, Scott? Looking at some changes.
We are, and that's been to a variety of things. I can't think of a time when we've had as many changes to the zoning code coming up and taking place or in consideration. We have nightclubs, we had daycares, we've got this one in Old Town. Airbnbs, short-term rentals is another one, and each of them is complicated in their own way. So, but what I neglected to say with the enforcement is, so we give them a certain amount of time, specified amount of time to get corrected and get in right with the zoning code, or to get in dialogue with us about how that's going to happen. If either of those are unsuccessful, then we will continue to take it to court, and that is where the penalties are assigned.
Okay, thanks for the clarification on that. Now we have a item, non-public hearing item. Mary Hunt will present the Sedgwick County Capital Improvement Program, or introduce it so that we can understand what's coming up for our community.
Well,
Mary?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Mary Hunt from the Planning Department. Today we have Sedgwick County Public Works going to be presenting on the county CIP, which is a 5-year program, and that begins in 2024 and goes out for 5 years. So with that, I'm going to ask Lynn Packer, the Public Works Director and our county engineer, to come up and kick this off.
Welcome, Lynn.
Thank you, Mary. Planning Commissioners, good afternoon. I'm here today with Paul Kavanaugh. He is the manager of our Project Services Division to talk about our 2024-2028 Capital Improvement Program. Next slide, please. So currently we're about halfway through the budget and CIP approval process. Public hearings will come up next, followed by budget adoption, which includes the capital improvement program itself. Next slide. So why do we do this to you every year and just make your long meetings even longer? It's not my idea. State statute 12748 mandates that the Planning Commission make a determination that our CIP is in conformance with the current comprehensive plan before we can construct any of the projects listed in the program. So again, not my idea, but we go through it. And also, you know, it's just a nice way to know what's going on in the area and what's going on. Next slide. So the current community investments plan was adopted by the Board of County Commissioners on January 16th, 2016. And I believe the city also approved it around that same date, maybe the day before. The plan sets out the goals and standards that that kind of guide our projects. And we're here today seeking a finding from the commission that our CIP is in conformance with this plan. So at this time, I'm gonna have Paul come up and present the facilities and drainage projects. And then I'll come up afterwards and talk about the public works projects.
Thank you, Lynn. Paul Kavanaugh, Project Services Manager for the county. I know it's been a long day. I'll try to be brief and roll through these as quickly as we can, so you can take advantage of the good weather when you get out of here. Okay, they're categorized in 4 different levels of priority. The first one is the highest priority, and if we can go to that slide, thank you very much. These are the ones that are of the highest priority. And you can see that they're mostly preventive maintenance issues, the Wichita Valley Center flood control system, maintenance and repairs, roofs and parking lots in the county, repairs and replacements as they are needed, the outdoor warning devices for tornadoes and emergencies are being replaced, elevator upgrades in the main courthouse and the historic courthouse. And if I go too fast and you want to stop and get into the details of one, I'm happy to do that. EMS garage facility, we need a new facility to house the units, the 6-bay unit building. That will help them, the EMS, comply with state regs. One of the projects that we're excited about really is the Juvenile Community-Based Services building. As you can see, it's a pretty good slug. The first year is going to be the design. The next is going to be construction. It houses the juvenile residential facility, juvenile field services, and housing home-based services. The JFS is losing their facility, their lease down at the Old Harry Street Mall. So they decided to maybe consolidate all of these juvenile services into one area, one facility on the juvenile campus. So we're excited about that. ADF domestic water heater replacement, that's the Sedgwick County Jail adult detention facility. We've got 6 huge water heaters that are phased out to be replaced. The ages are 12 to 25 years old and they are worn out. Next slide, please. Very easily, ADF dishwasher exhaust duct is worn out, has holes in it. The historic courthouse data center needs an equipment refresh. They're talking about air handler units that have lived out their life, uninterruptible power sources, and an upgraded power distribution system. And then red brick east restroom at the park, and also Public Works salt storage building at the east yard. Simply, it's an existing wood structure they want to replace with a steel structure. Floating docks at Sedgwick County Park, they're wood, several of them, and they are beginning to be dangerous. So we're going to try to get those replaced. Next slide. Category 2, these are not as urgent or well-defined, but need to be looked at and funded in the short term. Of course, the jail annex boiler, water heater, storage tank, they're getting to their end of their life expectancy. The Munger building and historic courthouse boiler, the same thing. They're 22-year-old steam boilers. Most of the parts that they need to replace are out of date. Power factor correction at the adult detention facility, main courthouse, and historic courthouse to try to make the energy use a little bit more efficient and hopefully cost a little bit less. Main courthouse perimeter security is essentially bollards across the front of it, across Main Street entrance to keep people from being able to drive a vehicle into the lobby. EMS access control for the 18 facilities of the EMS, card activated doors so they can enter each of the different facilities' common system. Renovate the Cottonwood shelter at Sedgwick County Park and replace the playground structure at LAP. Next slide. Again, these are not as urgent as the first slides, but need to be thought about and replaced soon. EMS Post 1, that's in a building that was originally the Riverside Hospital, but now it's owned by Via Christi. And I think they're getting ready to sell the building or trying to sell the building. So when they do, that probably means we'll have to move. So we're thinking about another location for that EMS post. EMS also wants video surveillance for 17 posts. They have a handful of HVAC units at some of the posts that are obsolete and need to be replaced. Extension office facility upgrades that's been in use and well used for quite a while, built in '93. Upgrade finishes and more efficient water, heating, and lighting fixtures. Project Works open face storage, and that's ×3. We're talking about 3 different open face buildings for the protection of Public Works building, the equipment, to keep it out of the weather. Replace 4 Sedgwick County Park gazebos and create some more campsite water hookups at Lake Afton. I think they only have 16 right now. We would increase that number to 58. Category 3, these are projects that are out on the horizon, a little bit lower sense of urgency. Dog park for Sedgwick County Park, the firing range out at Lake Afton for the Sheriff's Department. The building out there is experiencing some structural damage. And we're talking about boosting up that foundation. The EMS at 4 posts, we would like to put in emergency generators that are natural gas driven, so they have a more permanent source of power. Renovate the EMS administration building, that's in sore need of a renovation. Boundless Playscape rubber base replacement at the park, say that 3 times. And then the Judge Riddell Boys Ranch space development. We're talking about putting a disc golf course and some other activity things out there. Let's see, next slide would be category 4. These are projects that are on the watch list. We need more information on a lot of them, but they are not as critical as the ones you've seen to this point. BAS replacement and ADF HVAC retrofit. That's a digital control system on all of the HVAC systems, environmental controls in the ADF to try to reduce the amount of energy that we're spending in that facility. Juvenile file storage conversion in the main courthouse. Also stairwell door assembly updates for fire rating. Main courthouse, the district court is already in a pretty sizable remodeling effort for the district courts. This would be phase 2 of that effort to upgrade courts and offices. Let's see, main courthouse exterior brick upgrade. Appraiser suite reconfiguration, that's in the Reagan building. And also the EMS post 4 replacement. And after that, we've got project types and funding sources that are pretty self-explanatory. Any questions that I can fall back to or revise, relook at? I'm trying to make this as entertaining as I possibly can, but you know how it is.
Commissioner Aldrich.
I got a quick question.
Yeah.
What do you got a backup plan in case the state decides they're gonna cap the taxes and stuff?
Yeah, that list of 4 goes out to like 6 or 7. We run out of money. Yeah, we would have to revisit it. But
Commissioner Green.
I know we haven't seen the city's CIP program yet, but when it comes to public safety, say EMS, are there any efforts being made to coordinate the construction of, say, new police substations and or fire stations with county EMS and or county sheriffs whenever there is that something that is maybe a duplication of efforts?
understood. And in several instances, and we are beginning to look more at a combination EMS and fire department stations for that very reason, to try to not duplicate efforts or facilities. So that is something we're beginning to look at. As far as city, county, I'm not aware of anything there.
Yeah,
That's
I'm
a good
not
idea.
talking about a consolidation of those, but I think to be, wise stewards of taxpayers' money, I think any efforts that could be made to consolidate construction to combined efforts would
Agree.
make a lot of sense.
Agree very much. We'll have to get that on the agenda a little bit higher up my pay scale.
Any additional questions? Thank you. A lot of information presented very efficiently. Thank you.
You bet.
Now let's hear about the other part of CIP, Lynn.
Next slide, please. On to the Public Works Road and Bridge Infrastructure. Next slide. So just a quick background. Some of you already know this or heard it, but we have 609 miles of roads that we maintain in the county and 603 bridges. We maintain more bridge structures than any other jurisdiction in the state other than KDOT. And we now have 19 miles of multi-use paths in the unincorporated county. And that's just in the unincorporated county. I think it speaks a lot to how those paths have just bloomed over the last decade or so. And on average, Sedgwick County roads carry over 1.5 million vehicles per day, vehicle miles per day. Next slide. So as for our projects, we have 4 major categories or purposes for the public works projects: to maintain, to enhance, to expand, and add quality of place. Next slide. So maintaining our roads and bridges makes the bulk of our projects. These are projects such as our preventive maintenance or annual preventive maintenance projects and bridge replacements and rehabilitation projects that we just have every year consistently. Next slide. Enhancing the infrastructure includes widening bridges, adding center lanes, turn lanes, and making roadside improvements. Next, our third category is expansion. Expansion includes reconstructing a road, for example, a 2-lane to a 4-lane or a 5-lane highway. It also includes other projects like constructing new roads or bridges where one doesn't currently exist. An example of that you guys would recognize would be the ARC 95 project we talked about for a number of years to kickstart that. Next slide. Under quality of place category, we include projects such as shared use paths and improvements and additions to public parks or other public spaces. Next slide. So in public works, we have 2 main goals with our projects. The first is to perform preventive maintenance about every 6 years on our roadways to maintain them. And number 2 is to replace or rehabilitate about 30,000 square feet of bridge deck each year. And this comes out to be about a 70-year lifespan for our bridges, we estimate at. Next slide. Some of the highlights for 2024 that differ from the presentation I gave last year. We've increased funding on several of our projects to keep up with labor and material costs. I think that's going to be a consistent theme throughout all these presentations on the CIP you'll hear. We eliminated funding to replace the 63rd Street Bridge over the Ark River. You may remember about 2 years ago, we did emergency repairs on 63rd Street South between Hydraulic and K15 over there north of Derby and east of Hayesville. We're expecting the repairs that were done there. We were able to get a little bit more done than just the immediate repairs. So we think we gained about 15 years of life, additional life out of that bridge. So we've canceled the rehab project that was going to be actually occurring next year. And we've added about 6 new bridge projects and 3 new road projects to the CIP in the outer years. Next slide. As noted, maintaining our roads and bridges makes up the bulk of our projects. We are spending about $59 million on these types of projects and the proposed CIP, 5-year CIP total. Next slide. For bridges, we have 1 rehab project that we're constructing in 2025, and that's the Seneca Street Bridge over the floodway. The goal is to get at least 20 more years of life out of that bridge. That'll be another one that will be a pain to close when it does come time. So my goal is 20 years, or at least by the time I retire, I'll let others take care of it. We've programmed 23 bridge replacements at a cost of over just $18 million over the 5 years. So we have a total of about 24 bridge projects planned throughout the county at a cost of just under $21 million. Next slide. So enhancement of the roads. Road enhancement projects total almost $37 million in this 5-year CIP, and includes projects such as the North Junction. You guys are all familiar with that. That's going on right now, the gold phase, and the upcoming East Kellogg improvements as well. We also have 2 shoulder widening projects and 11 road reconstruction projects. Next slide. We continue to invest in the future expansion of the road system with funding on the Northwest Expressway. And KDOT and the county plan to contribute $1 million each year of the CIP. The cities of Mays and Goddard have been contributing since the beginning, and they've agreed to continue to reimburse the county $5,000 each year for their contribution of that project. Next slide. For quality of place, the Maple Street Bike Path project is the current project addressing quality of place. This is a 1.55 million project that actually complements two Wichita projects to improve Maple Street in the next 10 years. The majority of the funds for this project will come through WAMPO with construction scheduled for 2025. And next slide. So in summary, public works portion of the CIP totals about $124 million over the 5-year period. We have $59 million for road maintenance, $21 million for bridge, $37 million supports enhancement of the infrastructure. That's about 30% of the budget. $5 million we will contribute to locally supports expansion via the Northwest Expressway. And you'll notice there's a $10 million total noted for that project. But I noted $5 million is local, $5 million is coming from KDOT. And we have $1.6 million for quality of place, which is about 1% of our total budget overall. So on the next slide, as I mentioned before, we need to find that we're requesting a finding that we're in conformance with the community investments plan. And there are two goals for transportation projects in that plan. The first goal is to preserve and maintain a safe, cost-effective, and reliable transportation system that strategically supports the economic growth, vitality, and quality of life aspirations in our community. Next slide. We feel that we've met that first goal. We have a CIP that will, it's already considered, we're maintaining roads that are already considered in good condition. We have $80 million total proposed to be spent on the existing roads and bridges over the 5-year period. And that represents about 65% of the total budget funds we've requested. Next slide. The second goal, the transportation within the community investments plan, is to improve and increase the movement of goods, people, and information with better connectivity and mobility options in our community. And the next slide. We feel that we've met that goal to invest with the investment in the Maple Street Bike Path project and as well as the long-range planning of the Northwest Expressway. The proposed bike path will connect Paz and Goddard with Wichita, and the Northwest Expressway would create a new route simplifying connections between Eastern and Western Central County. And almost last slide. Next, please. So today, based on the information that we presented here and the backup that you guys have been provided in advance of the meeting, we're requesting that the MAPC make a determination that our CIP is in conformance with the current comprehensive plan. Slide. I appreciate your time. Paul and I are willing to stand if you have any questions for either of us.
Questions? Commissioner Green.
How much of your portion of the CIP budget with roads and bridges is made up of gas tax revenue?
All of our, I can't say all of it, but the majority of our projects come from that revenue. It is dedicated solely for, not that we have a portion that's dedicated for that. We also have a portion of a 1-cent sales tax that was approved many years ago that is only used on road and bridge, and that's makes up the majority of our CIP.
I'm assuming that the legislative effort of the county, when they go to visit our state legislators, they are expressing concerns about that gas tax, especially with the push of EV or electric vehicles that are using all of these roads and bridges and not supporting any of that with the purchase of their electric vehicles and not getting any gas tax revenue at all. I'm assuming the county
Yes.
legislative body is pushing that.
We have concerns on a couple of fronts. Number one, EV vehicles that are not that are utilizing the services of the municipalities and the state through use of the roads, but not paying for the gas. Therefore not contributing that portion of the tax for their improvement. That's increasing every year. There are more and more EV vehicles out there. In addition, we also use local sales tax in our CIP, and the reduction of having groceries taken off of local sales tax is going to have a big hurt on us as well. One of the big pushes that has been studied several times, my wife was actually part of an initial study several years ago, is trying to replace the gas tax with a use tax. So you would be charged based on your use of the roads. And I say that just because I do believe that in order for the reduction of these taxes is going to have to result in some type of additional fee or tax to supplement that loss. And yes, we are actively talking to legislators about that.
Other questions or comments? Commissioner Johnson?
No, Mike, as you can see up there, it's a good day to be a civil engineer and not so good to be an architect.
Well, the previous report was good for you, though. It looked like there's some business opportunities there.
We're equal opportunity. We're supporting both.
So, Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that the proposed CIP is in conformance with the comprehensive plan.
We have a motion from Commissioner Green, a second from Commissioner Joe Johnson. Any further discussion? If not, I'll call a vote. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Motion passes 11-0. Thank you for your time and attendance. There being no other meeting topics, we are now adjourned.